on the John Fredericks Radio Network Disruptor Series. Lisa Babbage joining us now, running for Congress, Georgia's 7th District. Lisa, great to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
Lisa, okay, so you're running in the 7th, and that is an open seat right now. Because,
Absolutely. So it's Gwinnett County and South Forsyth, and Rob Woodall is retiring, so it will be an open seat.
Okay, so there's a number of candidates in this race right now. The leading candidate being State Senator Renee Unterman. She's been a conservative for a long time. I know Renee personally from the time, Lisa, that I was in Georgia. I think she ran the Health Services Committee for some time. She's pretty much a conservative. What's the difference between yourself and Renee Unterman?
I think if you label us both as conservatives, it misses all the nuances that separates candidates. First of all, there's nothing that, other than that word, there's nothing that Renee and I, all due respect, have in common, because I've lived a life that makes me able to be the candidate, which is the perfect candidate for this season. You know, Trump could not be president 20 years ago. It wasn't the season for him. So political disruption being what it is, I'm the girl for right now.
There's a number of candidates running on both sides, Lisa. As we mentioned, on the Democratic side, you've got Bordeaux that Woodall just beat by a few hundred votes the last time. I don't know if she's going to be the nominee. She's got to be the favorite going in right now. She's got the name ID on the Democratic side. But this is a seat that on paper Republicans should win. Bordeaux almost pulled the upset over Woodall. I mean, we didn't find out for days after that. That's why it's probably a good idea that Woodall's retiring. So this seat, what inspired Lisa Babbage to get in this race?
When I found out that he was retiring and some of the names that we were going to put up as a party, I knew that we didn't have a chance. We came so close last election that it's got to be the right candidate to beat what the Democrats are putting forward. So it's ill-advised for us just to put up the same kind of establishment candidate who will lose. So that's why I decided to jump in. Now, I'm an educator, and I can look at the writing on the wall. If we don't have a candidate that can match or beat the Democratic nominee, we will lose. We came too close in our last election.
All right, so what is it that you think separates you out?
Well, I mean, first of all, if you take one look at my political resume, that you will see that I have been able to cross the aisles in everything I do in life. That's going to be key to activate our conservative voters who have not voted in Gwinnett County for years, as well as those independent liberals, or not liberals, but independent registered Democrats that we can get to cross the aisle. I've already spoken with many of them, some even in my family. They're willing to vote Republican for the first time in their life if they see a candidate like me on the ballot. That's going to make the difference in this election, and that's what's going to get a Republican win. You
have no experience in politics, so you're trying to come in this, Lisa, as the disruptor. Tell us a little bit about your teaching. This is going to be a very expensive campaign. I haven't talked to Unterman, but she's been here a long time. She's got a political machine. I would think she's going to spend a lot of money. How do you overcome that?
Well, I think you can look at the example you just painted about the 6th District. Lucy McBath, who won, spent a quarter of what Karen Handel spent and won. She's in the seat right now. Karen is not. And that's what we need to look at for the 7th District. It's not just money. It's connecting with voters. You can buy all the ads you want, but if people see straight through that same old rhetoric, they will not cast a vote for you. And that's the bottom line. This is the season of first-time politicians. This is the season of breaking all your status quo barriers in politics, because that's what Trump has done. And if it works for him, it can work for someone else, and that's what I plan on doing.
Would you say, Lisa, you're the candidate of Trump in this race?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, first of all, it's not something that the establishment wants to see. So I have that wild card factor.
Why don't they want you as a nominee?
Said, you know, I would just be guessing. I would be grasping at straws to say exactly why not. But I think the main thing that you have to look at is I owe allegiance to no one in the party. What I want to do, what is right for the American citizen above anything else. I don't have the roots in that policy to where I would have to kowtow to any lobbyists or any special interests. I'm not looking to form a new career. I'm looking to do some good. I've got a couple of key things that I want to go to Washington for, and when that's done, I'm out. So I can't be bought. And I know everyone has a price, But it's much different if you spent your lifetime collecting payoffs from different people versus someone who's been a public servant their whole life. And that's my resume.
Let's talk about some of the issues. Would you vote in favor of the president's border wall when it comes
Absolutely.
up again in
In
2021?
fact, I think we need to go. I think Congress needs to take a vacation and go lay a brick, because that is a commitment to not just a campaign promise, but American future. My father's an immigrant. My stepfather's an immigrant, and I would build that wall today.
Would you call yourself, Lisa, a fiscal conservative?
Yes, absolutely, and more so with other people's money than my own. And that's something that Washington has forgotten. This is other people's money that we're spending, and we're shouldering the next generation with debt. Now, of course, we've heard that before, but if we don't cut the spending, it's just not going to work. We've got to cut the spending.
Would you have voted in favor, if you were in Congress now, would you have voted in favor of the president's deal that he cut with the Democrats for the 2-year budget that is going to raise the debt by $4.1 trillion, yes or no?
Well, I'd like to say yes or no, but I can't. I don't want to raise any debt, but obviously the president did what he thought he had to do in order to get some stuff done. So I'm going to support the president. If the president wants something done and I can't find a way around it and I don't see it causing irreparable harm, then yes, I will vote for it. But my goal is not to raise the debt ceiling. I think we need to slash across the board.
So one of your opponents, Lynn Homrich, former executive, I think Home Depot, if memory serves me correct, in Atlanta. She's running as an outsider, saying, I'm a businesswoman, not a politician. I'm a mom. What's the difference between Lisa Babbage and Lynn Homrich?
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, common sense, I think, is a big difference, and exposure. Lynn's second point in any speech is that she's a mom. Now, I'm a mom, too, and as a teacher, obviously, I love moms. But I think we have to bring more than that to the table when we're talking about our country's future. You can't just be a businesswoman and a mom. You have to have had experiences that will make you empathetic to the millions of people in this country who are struggling, to the folks who need Washington to do something a little different. She doesn't have that from what I can see.
We're with Lisa Babbage. She is running as a Republican candidate for the Republican nomination for Congress in Georgia's 7th District that was represented for 10 years, I believe, by Rob Woodsall. He narrowly defeated Carolyn Bordeaux last year in the midterms. I think, Lisa, 200 votes, something like that, 180, very, very close. Very tight. Bordeaux almost pulling the upset, and Ron Woodall deciding not to run again. And Ron Woodall, of course, the chief of staff, replacing the father of the fair tax. Who was that? He was there for a long time. Who was that, Congressman?
John Lennon, and it was
John Linder.
And 23 votes.
How many?
That's John Lennon, and it was 423 votes that separated that.
Yeah, I know
race,
it was close, right? 423. Race. And John Linder, who was the congressman, he sponsored, I believe, was the fair tax in Congress when he was there. And then when he retired, Ron Woodall was the chief of staff. He won the nomination. He was there for 10 years, 5 terms. So we're with Lisa Babbage. She's running as the outsider, the Trump candidate in this race. All right, let's get to the elephant in the room, Renee Unterman, right? I mean, Renee's got to be the favorite. She's got the most money. She's been a state senator. Renee's been around forever. I mean, my goodness, when I was doing my show in Atlanta on TV, I had her on. That was years ago. And so she's been around for a very long time. And so why not Renee Unterman? I mean, what differentiates yourself between Renee Unterman, who's got to be the favorite?
Well, first of all, when I started having this conversation, she hadn't put her name in. And I won't doubt that she's done some great work in our state Senate. But when you've been in it for a long time, not only do you hold a lot of cards on the positive, but you have a lot of enemies. And I think that Renee's campaign will run its course, and you're going to see some things within the campaign that cause her to no longer be the candidate. And then you have to look at what's left.
Oh, so you think that there might be some things coming out? There might be some things coming out that Renee Unterman might decide to get out of the race.
Either get out politely or be ushered out. Yes.
Wow, that's a pretty
do.
bold statement, Lisa. Do you know something we don't know?
You and I probably know the same thing. Who knows? But the bottom line is I'm not a person that can start telling lies just because I'm running for Congress. I'm not that good of a liar. So I just call it like I see it, and I try to be as transparent of a Goliath of truth slaying as I can.
All right. You're saying that Senator Renee Unterman's got some issues that may get her out of the race. And I think you said they ushered out or out under her own volition. Either way, that's going to leave you and a bunch of other candidates. You're a former college professor. You're pro-life. And you're trying to run as the pro-Trump candidate, a former DeKalb County teacher. Now, I was in DeKalb for a while. And the schools there are always a little bit rough and tumble, right? You would agree with that in some areas. Yeah. Tell us about your teaching experience in DeKalb, and then also I'm going to ask you a follow-up on that.
So I'm actually still a DeKalb County teacher, still an adjunct professor with Southeastern University. And you're right, we're starting to see things in Gwinnett County, where I live, that mirror what has happened in DeKalb County. There's obvious tipping of the scale depending on what side of the county you're in. And we've got kids who have no future if they stay on the same trajectory that they're on. And it is still pretty much a school-to-prison pipeline in some neighborhoods. And that's education, obviously, is one thing that I want to make sure stays strong in the 7th District. You
know who a good friend of mine is? He used to be DeKalb County CEO for 2 terms, ran for sheriff, and now he's back in this. And now he's back in the State House. You know, one of my best friends in the world is Vernon Jones. I bet you didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that.
See, you learn things every day. Vernon is one of my best friends, and he was my good friend in Atlanta. He's a great guy. He's a Democrat, but Vernon is a great guy, and I hope you got along with him, because if you get to be in Congress, I think he's a House member, isn't he now?
I guess it is a House member, yes.
Yes, he's a House member.
That's one thing about me. My father is an Australian immigrant, and where I grew up in the shadow of the state capitol, we were one of the only conservative conservative voting families for probably 100 miles. So I'm used to getting along with people who don't always agree with me. Hey, that happens in my own family.
I'm going to call Vernon after this show and get his take on you, Lisa, and I'll tell you what he has to say. But Vernon Jones, very dear friend of mine for many, many years. He's a great guy. So, okay, Lisa Babbage, you're the Trump candidate in your race. You went and announced your candidacy at Trump Hotel at his birthday party, right? That's pretty cool, right? So you did that, and you're saying that favorite Renee Unterman is going to get out of that race. You see there's something might be going on there. So, having said that, how do you put a coalition together with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 candidates on the Republican side? You're going to need 20%, 25% to win. How do you put a coalition together in order to do that?
Well, I mean, I think that the first thing you do is you bring in common sense, because a lot of folks are doing, again, that traditional type of campaigning, whereas I'm doing something different. I am specifically going after independents, conservative Democrats, those Republicans who are conservative but haven't voted. Those people need to be activated. Unfortunately, the Republican Party in my district is not really gung-ho about knocking on apartment complex doors. Don't really have a plan for connecting with minorities and folks who have been left out of the Republican conversation for generations. I'm the kind of person that represents all those groups. So that's where I'm going to start, because I'm going to form a new base that will be the Republican Party in the 7th District.
Boy, I love that idea. But here's the problem in a primary, right? So in Georgia, it's an open primary system, likely to be a runoff. So you're going to have to get new voters to vote in a Republican primary, and then have to come back a second time in a runoff. Like the other people, like Renee Unterman, and I would assume Lynn Homrich, who probably has high-priced political consultants, they're going to go after the traditional Republican voter that comes out in primaries, who they know are going to show up twice, right? So just looking at the math here,
right?
I mean, looking at the math, you're looking for new voters, and you got to get them out twice. I mean, that is that's a tough proposition, Lisa.
It is a tough thing. It's an uphill battle, and I'm not afraid. I feel like this is my military service. One, we've got to activate those new voters or we're going to lose to a Democrat regardless. But second of all, I'm not going to forego those tried and true Republicans who have stood by us. Now, I am actually on the executive board of the Gwinnett County Republican Party. I'll be rolling off now that I've announced my candidacy, but I'm building relationships with those folks as well. I started volunteering in the party at 17 in Arizona. And I continued that when we moved back to Georgia in the 6th and in the 7th. So these people know me. It's not like I am going to hang them out to dry. I stepped up and filled a spot on our executive board when we had no one to fill it. And they all can testify. Any one of our members can testify to my loyalty to those tried and true conservatives that have been there all along.
All right, you got to get in the runoff, Lisa. I'm going to be following this race. You got to get in the runoff. And those people, those new voters you get out for you. I love your strategy. I love it because if you can be the nominee, they're gonna help you win in November, right? Because they're going to be there for you. They're new. You're going to get through traditional Republican voters. Here's your biggest risk in your strategy, and I'm sure your consultants tell you this. I'm just telling you from having lived there for so long, is getting your new voters out in the runoff. And the runoff is going to be like, what, probably July or August or something of 2020. It's a nightmare, but it's going to be getting them out in the runoff. And the way, so everybody knows it works is you got 8 candidates. If nobody gets over 50%, the top 2 get in the runoff. No way anybody's getting 50% here, even if Renee stays in. So you got to get in the runoff and then get your people out a second time. And I can go back to 1990-something. Bob Barr ran for a Senate nomination. He got a bunch of new voters out against Paul Coverdell, and he got in the runoff, and then they didn't show up in the runoff. Coverdell ended up winning, beating Barr handily, and went on to be a tremendous U.S. Senator. But that's my little trip down memory lane. How I remember all this stuff, Lisa, I have no earthly idea. I got to go. John Fredericks